Hey guys, welcome back. It's Dave, no recipe required. Hope you're doing well. Today I'm going to make a maple glazed pork chop. It's an absolute great thing. I've got it brining right now. Let's show you how to get to it. Alright guys, so our maple glazed pork chops start like I start almost all of my pork chops, with a brine. These have been going all day. I put them in before I went to work today. And it's a fairly standard brine. I think you can probably find a recipe for it on the website. But what I've done is, instead of sugar, I've used actual maple syrup in here for the sweetener to impart a little bit more of that maple flavor on there. I'm just going to go ahead and remove this from the liquid and drop it on a paper towel to dry off and come up to room temperature, probably an hour or so before I cook them. And then you just want to make sure all that moisture is patted off and they're dry. We'll season them with a little salt and pepper right before we put them in the oven. Or I'm sorry, right before we put them in the pan. We'll come back then. All right, so we're going to cook off our pork chops. We're going to do it just like we do any other. Now look at that. My pan is actually a little bit too hot. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn off the heat and just move it around a little bit. It'll cool down in a second. When you sear something like a pork, you definitely want the smoking hot pan. This one, like I said, a little too aggressive. So I'm just gonna relax, take it back for a second. Then I'm gonna go ahead, once it cools down, I'm gonna go ahead and lay my pork down. And there's gonna be some big time sizzle. And I want to get a nice good sear on one side of it. So once I put it down there, I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to let it go. Yeah, the heat's all the way down now. I'm going to let it go for just another 30 seconds or so. Then I'll turn it up to medium-high and let it get good and seared on that side. Probably take 5 minutes or so. Then we'll flip it over and do another 3 or 4 minutes on this side and get a good sear on that. And then we'll be ready to make our maple glaze. All right, so my pork chops have been going now, like I said, for 5 to 6 minutes or so. And you can see when I flip it over, it's got that nice caramelized crust on it. I'm just going to go ahead and flip it around, lay it on the other side. I'm going to do the same with the other pork chops. Now, one of the other tricks I'll show you, pork chops, can tend to have this fatty outside, which is great if it's fully cooked off, but can be kind of chewy and not so nice if it's not. So sometimes I'll go ahead and take my pork chops and just stand them up, let them go for a minute or so with that fat side down on the pan, and that will render out some of that fat and make it nice and crispy and actually worth eating. Once I let this go, we're going to flip them around. I'm going to let it go another 5 or 6 minutes, and then I'll flip it in the oven just to finish off cooking. Okay guys, so after searing both sides of my pork, I put it in the oven for probably 8 to 10 minutes or so, just till it gets to the right doneness. Either you can use the feel tester if you have a meat thermometer. Go ahead and do that. I just put it back on the flame. I'm going to go ahead and put my pork off to the side, wrap it in aluminum foil so it rests. It's important to rest meat. And then we're going to go ahead and make our maple glaze. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to remove a little bit of this fat that's in the pan, because I don't need all of that in the dish. I'm going to leave a little bit in there, and then I'm going to add just a few jiggers of sherry vinegar, and that's going to help me, using a wooden spoon, take off from the bottom of the pot a lot of that yummy pork fat and material that's consolidated down on the pan there. Let me get my heat up just a little bit, and then once that starts coming up and the vinegar reduces by about a third, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of mustard to it, and this will the mustard will help balance out the sweetness in the maple syrup and give it a nice kind of sweet and sour taste almost. And just get that mustard mixed in there with the vinegar. And by now you can see almost everything has come up off the bottom of the pan. Hit it with my maple syrup. And again, mix all that together and let it reduce down again by about 1/4 to 1/3. And you know, as that sugar cooks down and caramelizes, it'll get increasingly thicker. A little too thick for a sauce all on its own. So I've also got a little bit of stock, chicken stock, which I'm going to add to finish off our sauce. And then again, this is going to reduce down to probably half the consistency here. You want a nice, sauce consistency. And once it's down, we're going to go ahead and plate up our dish. Then I'm going to go ahead, take my maple glazed pork chop, lay that right there. And then I've also got my sauce, maple sauce, and just throw a little bit of that right on top, and then maybe a little around the plate. Then we can finish off with a few green beans. Alright guys, I've enjoyed it. There's your rice pilaf and maple glazed pork chop. I'll see you next time on No Recipe Required.